Princess Kalara stood at the viewing window of the Grand Council chambers, watching the small human vessel approach through the darkness of space. It looked so plain compared to the magnificent ships of the Viridian Empire. The human ship had no elegant curves, no shimmering energy fields that marked true civilized craftsmanship. It was just a simple metal box with engines attached. She sighed and turned away from the window. This was supposed to be an important assignment. Her father, the Emperor, had chosen her personally to evaluate the human petition to join the Galactic Concordat. But Kalara knew the truth. This was busy work. A way to keep her occupied while her older siblings handled real diplomatic matters. The humans were newcomers. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 20 years ago. 20 years. The Viridian Empire had been traveling the stars for over 10,000 years. Most species in the Concordat measured their spacefaring history in millennia. The humans were like children who had just learned to walk, now asking to sit at the table with adults. Chancellor Varath entered the chamber, his long robe sweeping across the polished floor. He was her assigned advisor for this process, though Kalara suspected he was really there to make sure she didn't embarrass the royal family. The humans have docked. Princess, Morris said, his voice carrying that particular tone of disdain he reserved for lesser species. They will be here within the hour. Have you reviewed their technological presentations? Kalara asked. I have. Vorath made a dismissive gesture. Nothing impressive. Their computers are crude. Their weapons are barbaric chemical explosives and simple energy weapons. Their medicine is barely adequate to keep their own people alive. I cannot fathom why they believe they're ready for Concordat membership. Kalara had read the reports too. The humans have little to offer in terms of technology. Their worlds were few, only 7 colonies beyond their home planet Earth. Their military was small and inexperienced. They had no unique scientific discoveries to share. By every practical measure, they weren't ready. Then why are we even having this meeting? She asked. Vorath smiled coldly. Politics, princess. The Concordat likes to appear welcoming to new species. We hold these hearings, we make a show of consideration, and then we politely suggest they come back in a few centuries when they're more developed. It's tradition. The word stung, though Kalara wasn't sure why. She had sat through a dozen such hearings before. Species that reached for the stars too soon, hoping to join galactic civilization before they were ready. The Concordat always sent them away kindly but firmly. It was the right thing to do. Premature membership could be dangerous for everyone involved. An hour later, the human delegation entered the council chambers. There were 5 of them, looking small and fragile in their formal suits. Humans were soft creatures. Kalara had read. No natural armor, no venom, no enhanced strength. They came from a world with moderate gravity and mild radiation. Evolution had made them weak. The leader of their delegation stepped forward. He was a man of medium height with dark hair touched by gray at the temples. His eyes were brown and calm, and he carried himself with quiet dignity, despite walking into a room where he was clearly not wanted. Princess Kalara. Chancellor Vorath honored members of the council. He said in perfectly accented Viridian standard language. I am Marcus Chun, diplomatic representative of the United Earth Coalition. Thank you for agreeing to hear our petition. Kalara took her seat at the head of the council table. Please, sit. We have reviewed your preliminary documents, Ambassador Chun. Perhaps you could explain to us why humanity believes it is ready for Concordat membership. Marcus Chun sat down, and his delegation followed. He didn't seem nervous or intimidated. That surprised Kalara. Most petitioning species showed at least some anxiety when facing the Viridian Council. Your Highness, I won't insult your intelligence by claiming we match your technological achievements, Chime began. We don't. The Viridian Empire has forgotten more about quantum mechanics than we've ever learned. Your ships are faster, your weapons more powerful, your cities more magnificent. Vorath made a satisfied sound. At least the human knew his place. But Chun continued. However, the Concordat Charter doesn't require technological parity. It requires demonstrated commitment to peaceful cooperation, respect for sentient life, and the ability to contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. And what exactly do you contribute? Vorath interrupted. Your technology is primitive. Your resources are limited. Your military couldn't defend a single star system against any Concordat member species. What do you bring to this table? Chun met Vorath's challenging gaze steadily. We bring perspective, Chancellor. Every species in the Concordat has been spacefaring for thousands of years. You've all grown powerful, advanced, comfortable. But humanity still remembers what it's like to struggle. We remember poverty, disease, war. We remember being afraid and uncertain. And we remember choosing to be better. Kalara found herself leaning forward, interested despite herself. Humanity spent most of our history fighting ourselves, Chun said. We nearly destroyed our own world several times. We created weapons that could turn our planet into ash. We poisoned our air and water. We enslaved each other, killed each other over resources and beliefs and the color of our skin. This is supposed to convince us you're ready for membership? Vorath asked mockingly. No, Chun said quietly. This is to explain why we understand the value of cooperation in a way species who evolved peacefully might not. We know what happens when different groups refuse to work together. We've lived that nightmare. And we made a choice, as a species, to reject it. We created the United Earth Coalition, not because we became friends overnight, but because we decided our survival required us to put aside our differences. A pretty speech, Vorath said. But words are cheap, Ambassador. Then judge us by our actions, Chun replied. We've shared every technological development we've made with our neighboring systems, even those who aren't human. When the colony on Proxima Station faced a food crisis, we sent aid despite our own shortages. When the mining accident on Titan left workers trapped underground, human rescue teams worked for 3 weeks straight to bring them out alive. Every single person. We don't leave people behind. Kalara studied the human diplomat carefully. There was something compelling about him, something genuine. He wasn't trying to impress them with false bravado or exaggerated claims. He was simply stating what he believed to be true. The Concordat will need time to review your petition, she said formally. In the meantime, you are invited to remain as our guests. There will be a diplomatic reception tomorrow evening aboard our flagship. You will have the opportunity to meet representatives from other member species. We would be honored, Princess, Chun said, bowing his head respectfully. As the human delegation left the chamber, Vorath turned to Kalara. A waste of time, as expected. They have nothing to offer but noble sentiments and pretty words about cooperation. Kalara watched Marcus Chun's retreating back through the doorway. Something about him bothered her, but not in a bad way. It was more like a question she couldn't quite formulate, hovering at the edge of her thoughts. Perhaps, she said softly, or perhaps we've been powerful for so long that we've forgotten what true strength looks like. Vorath stared at her in surprise, but Kalara was already walking toward her private quarters. Tomorrow's reception would be interesting. She found herself actually looking forward to speaking with the human again. There was something about Marcus Chun that didn't fit her expectations, and Kalara had always been curious about things that didn't fit. The diplomatic reception was held in the grand ballroom of the Viridian flagship, the Pride of Meridian. The ship was one of the largest in the fleet, over 3 kilometers long, with enough space to host thousands of guests comfortably. The ballroom itself was a marvel of engineering. with a transparent ceiling that showed the stars above and floating platforms that drifted gently through the air. Kalara wore her formal court dress, a flowing garment of deep blue that marked her royal status. She moved through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries with ambassadors from a dozen different species. The Thalaxians with their multiple arms, the crystalline Sharborn who communicated through light patterns, the massive Goroth who had to stoop to avoid hitting the ceiling, and there, near the refreshment tables, stood the human delegation. They looked small and plain among the exotic aliens surrounding them. Marcus Chen was speaking with a Thalaxian trade minister, seemingly unbothered by the fact that the minister had barely acknowledged his presence. Kalara found herself walking toward them. She told herself it was just good diplomacy, making sure the petitioning species felt welcome. But truthfully, she was curious. She wanted to understand what made this human different from the countless other petitioners she had met. "Ambassador Chun," she said, approaching them. "I hope you're enjoying the reception." Chun turned and smiled warmly. "Princess Kalara, it's magnificent. I've never seen anything quite like this ballroom. Our engineers take great pride in their work," she said. Then, because she was curious, she added, "Though I imagine it must be frustrating, being surrounded by technology you can't replicate." She expected defensiveness or embarrassment. Instead, Chun laughed. It was a genuine sound, free of bitterness. "Not frustrating at all," he said. "It's inspiring. Every species here has something unique to teach. The Thalaxians have mastered gravity manipulation in ways we never imagined. The Sharborn process information through quantum entanglement. The Goroth have biological computers growing inside their bodies. Why would I be frustrated by that? It's amazing." Before Kalara could respond, a loud alarm cut through the ballroom. The pleasant music stopped abruptly. Red lights began flashing along the walls. A voice boomed through the ship's communication system, speaking in rapid Viridian. Kalara's blood went cold as she processed the words. "Critical failure in antimatter containment. Reactor breach imminent. All personnel proceed to evacuation stations immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." The ballroom erupted into controlled chaos. Viridian guards appeared instantly, forming protective circles around important guests. Species representatives began moving toward the exits in organized groups, trained for such emergencies. 2 guards appeared at Kalara's side. "Princess, we must get you to the escape pods immediately." "What's happening?" she demanded. "The antimatter reactor has suffered a catastrophic failure," one guard said urgently. "The containment field is collapsing. The engineering team estimates 8 minutes before total breach." 8 minutes. If the antimatter containment failed completely, the resulting explosion would destroy the entire ship and everything within 100,000 kilometers. Thousands would die. Can they fix it? Kalara asked, even as her guards began pulling her toward the exit. "They're trying, but the radiation levels in the reactor chamber are too high. It's lethal to Viridians. No one can survive long enough to reach the manual override controls." Kalara let herself be guided through the corridors, but her mind was racing. All those people on the ship. The crew, the guests, the diplomats from across the galaxy. All dead because no one could survive the radiation long enough to press a button. Near the escape pod bay, she saw Marcus Chen talking urgently with his delegation. One of them, a woman with short red hair, was pulling up data on a portable device. "Marcus, you can't," the woman was saying. "Even if you can survive the radiation longer than they can, it's still a death sentence." "How much longer?" Chun asked calmly. "Based on Earth's background radiation compared to their homeworld, maybe twice as long. Maybe 3 times. But that's still not enough time, too." "It might be enough," Chun interrupted. He looked at another member of his delegation, a young man with glasses. David, can you guide me through their systems? I think so, but Marcus, Chum put a hand on the young man's shoulder. I need you to be sure, David. Can you talk me through fixing their reactor? The young man swallowed hard, then nodded. Yes, I can do it. Kelara pushed away from her guards and walked toward the humans. What are you doing? Chun turned to face her. His expression was calm, but she could see the determination in his eyes. Humans evolved on a planet with higher radiation levels than most Viridian worlds. Our biology can handle more exposure. Not much more, but maybe enough. Enough for what? Enough to reach the manual override and trigger the emergency containment before the reactor breaches. The words didn't make sense at first. Then understanding crashed over her like cold water. You're planning to go into the reactor chamber? Yes, you'll die, she said flatly. Probably, Chun agreed. But if I don't try, everyone on this ship will definitely die. Including you, Princess. Vorath appeared, his face twisted with anger and fear. This is absurd. You're a primitive human. You don't know our systems. You'll kill yourself for nothing. Maybe, Chun said. But I have to try. Why? Kelara demanded. The question came out almost as a shout. Why would you sacrifice yourself for people who have shown you nothing but contempt? We've made it clear we don't think you're worthy of joining the Concordat. We've treated you like children. Why would you die for us? Marcus Chen looked at her, and for a moment, the chaos around them seemed to fade. His voice was quiet but absolutely certain. Because it's the right thing to do, he said. That's what humanity brings to the galaxy, Princess. Not superior technology or ancient wisdom. We bring the stubborn refusal to let people die when we can do something about it. We bring the belief that every life matters, even the lives of people who look down on us. We bring the courage to act when everyone else says it's impossible. He turned to his team. David, get to a safe location with a communication line to the reactor section. Sarah, coordinate with the Viridian engineering team. Get me their technical specifications and a radiation suit. The alarm blared again. 6 minutes to reactor breach. All personnel must evacuate immediately. Kelara's guards were pulling at her again, but she couldn't move. She was frozen, watching this human prepare to walk into certain death. For strangers. For people who had dismissed him and his species as unworthy. Ambassador Chun, she said, and her voice cracked slightly. If you survive this, humanity's petition will be approved. You have my word. Chum smiled at her, and it was the saddest, warmest smile she had ever seen. I appreciate that, Princess. But I'm not doing this for membership in the Concordat. I'm doing it because I can't live with myself if I don't try. A Viridian engineer ran up with a radiation suit. It was designed for Viridians and didn't fit Chun well, but he put it on anyway. His human team helping adjust the seals as best they could. Vora stepped forward. And to Kelara's surprise, his voice was thick with emotion. Human Marcus Chen, if you succeed, I will personally sponsor your species membership petition. You have my word as Chancellor of the Viridian Council. Chun nodded. Thank you, Chancellor. Now please, get to the escape pods. All of you. As Chum started toward the reactor section, Kelara finally allowed her guards to pull her toward safety. But she couldn't stop watching him walk away, this small, soft human heading toward a wall of lethal radiation that would kill him cell by cell. She had never seen anything like it. In all her life, surrounded by powerful warriors and brilliant scientists and noble leaders, she had never witnessed courage quite like this, and she realized, with shocking clarity, that she had been completely wrong about humanity. They might be technologically primitive. They might be weak by Viridian standards. But they possessed something far more valuable than strength or advanced weapons. They possessed a kind of moral courage that the galaxy had forgotten existed. Kilara stood at the observation post, refusing to leave despite her guards' protests. She had pulled rank, using her authority as a princess to override their security protocols. If Marcus Chun was going to die trying to save them, the least she could do was witness his sacrifice. The observation post overlooked the reactor section, through layers of radiation shielding and reinforced glass. Multiple screens showed feeds from cameras throughout the contaminated zone, though the radiation was already creating static and distortion in the images. Chancellor Vorath stood beside her, his face pale. Around them, a handful of Viridian engineers monitored the reactor status, their expressions grim. The numbers on their screens told a simple, terrible story. 4 minutes and 30 seconds until complete containment failure. After that, nothing would matter anymore. "He's entering the outer corridor now," one engineer said, his voice tight with tension. On the main screen, Kilara could see Marcus Chun moving through the doorway into the contaminated section. Even through the distortion, she could see him moving carefully but steadily. His radiation suit was already showing yellow warning indicators. "Ambassador Chen, can you hear me?" The voice was David, the young human who had promised to guide Chun through the Viridian systems. He was broadcasting from a shielded communication room elsewhere on the ship. "I hear you, David." Chun's voice came through clearly, calm and focused. "I'm in the outer corridor. I can see the radiation markers. It's pretty bad in here." "Your suit is already at 30% of maximum exposure," David said, trying to keep his own voice steady. "You need to move quickly." "Understood." "Which way to the reactor chamber?" Kilara watched as David guided Chun through the maze of corridors. Every step took Chun deeper into the radiation zone. The suit indicators climbed steadily. 40%. 50%. The material of the suit itself was breaking down under the intense bombardment of particles. 3 minutes to breach, an engineer announced. Chun reached a sealed door. Through the camera, Kilara could see his hands shaking as he worked the manual override panel. The radiation was already affecting him. No one, not even a human, could withstand this level of exposure without consequences. "David, the panel has 6 symbols. They're glowing green, green, blue, red, blue, green from left to right. That's the emergency lock. You need to press them in sequence. Blue, green, red, green." Chun's hands moved across the panel. For a moment, nothing happened, and Kilara's heart stopped. Then the door slid open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. "I'm through," Chun said. His breathing was becoming labored. Moving to the next section. "Suit integrity at 65%, David reported. "Marcus, you're taking massive doses." "Your body." "I know," Chun interrupted gently. "Just keep guiding me." "How far to the manual override?" 2 more corridors, then the reactor chamber itself. Vorath was gripping the edge of the console so hard his knuckles had turned white. "He won't make it," the Chancellor whispered. "Even if he reaches the override, he'll be too weakened to operate it." "He has to make it," Kilara said fiercely. "He has to." On the screen, Chun stumbled. He caught himself against a wall, leaving a handprint on the metal surface. When he pulled his hand away, Kilara could see the suit material was scorched and melting. "Marcus!" David's voice cracked with emotion. "Your suit is failing. You need to turn back. Please. You've done enough. Just come back." "Can't do that, David." Chun pushed himself upright and kept moving. "How much time left?" 2 minutes, 15 seconds. "Then I'd better hurry." Kilara had seen warriors face death before. She had watched soldiers charge into battle, knowing they wouldn't survive. But this was different. This wasn't the heat of combat or the rush of adrenaline. This was a man walking slowly, deliberately, toward certain death, feeling every second of it, and choosing to continue anyway. Chun reached the final corridor. The cameras here were nearly useless, overwhelmed by radiation. But audio still worked, and they could hear his labored breathing inside the suit. "I can see the reactor chamber door," he said. It's beautiful, actually. There's this blue glow, like nothing I've ever seen." "That's Cherenkov radiation," David said. "It means particles are moving faster than light can travel through the reactor medium. Marcus, your suit is at 90%. When it fails, I know what happens when it fails. Opening the door now." There was a long moment of silence. Then Chun's voice came through again, filled with wonder despite the pain. "Oh, wow. David, you should see this. It's like standing inside a star. Marcus, focus. The manual override should be on your left, a red panel with a handprint scanner. I see it. But there's a problem." Kalara's breath caught. "What problem?" "The scanner," Chun said. "It's biometric. It's designed to read Viridian handprints, not human ones. It won't recognize me." Vorath slammed his fist on the console. "Of course. The safety protocols require Viridian biology. It's to prevent sabotage. The system won't accept an alien handprint." "1 minute to breach," the engineer said quietly. On the screen, they could barely make out Chun's shape through the static. He was standing in front of the panel, swaying slightly. "So much for that plan," he said, and there was a hint of dark humor in his voice. "David, is there any other way to trigger the containment?" David was frantically consulting with the Viridian engineers. Maybe if you can manually reroute the power conduits. There's a junction box behind the panel. If you can cross-connect the emergency power directly to the containment field generators, it might bypass the biometric lock. Might? It's never been tested. It could work. Or it could cause the reactor to detonate immediately. Chun laughed, a weak but genuine sound. "Well, we're going to detonate in 50 seconds anyway. Let's try it." Kalara watched in horror as Chun pulled open the panel, exposing a mass of power conduits. His hands were shaking badly now, and the suit was failing in multiple places. She could see skin beneath the melting material. "Talk me through it, David." The young human's voice was steady now, focused on the technical details as a way to handle his fear. "You need to disconnect the blue conduit from port 7 and connect it to port 3. Then take the yellow conduit from port 2 and cross it with the green conduit on port 9. Blue to 3, yellow and green crossing on 9. "Got it." Chun's hands moved among the conduits. Kalara could see burn marks appearing on his exposed skin. The radiation was cooking him alive, and yet he kept working. 30 seconds, the engineer said. "Almost there," Chun muttered. "Just need to, there." He connected the final conduit. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then every screen in the observation post lit up with alerts. The reactor status changed from critical red to warning yellow. The containment field, which had been collapsing, suddenly stabilized. The numbers stopped climbing toward catastrophe and began, slowly, to decline. A cheer erupted from the Viridian engineers. Vorath sagged against the console, relief washing over his face. All around the observation post, people were celebrating. But Kalara was watching the camera feed from the reactor chamber. Chun had collapsed. He was lying on the floor, his radiation suit in tatters, his body motionless. "Marcus!" David was shouting. "Marcus, respond! The reactor is stable. You did it. You saved everyone. Marcus, please respond." There was no answer. "Medical team to reactor section immediately," Kalara ordered, her voice cutting through the celebration. "I don't care about the radiation. Get him out of there now." "Princess, the radiation levels are still Now. She screamed. She was already running, her guards struggling to keep up. She couldn't explain why. She barely knew this human. But the thought of him dying alone in that chamber, after what he had done, was unbearable. She reached the reactor section as the medical team was pulling Chun out. They had him on an anti-gravity stretcher, rushing toward the medical bay. Kalara got one glimpse of his face as they passed. He was unconscious, his skin marked with radiation burns, his breathing shallow, but he was breathing. Will he survive? She asked the head doctor. The Viridian doctor looked uncertain. I don't know, Princess. We've never treated a human for radiation exposure before. We don't know how their biology will respond. The damage is extensive. Then find out, Kalara said. Contact every human doctor you can find. Get their medical databases. Do whatever it takes. He doesn't die. That's an order. As the medical team rushed Chun away, Kalara stood in the corridor, her heart pounding. Around her, the ship systems were returning to normal. The crisis was over. Thousands of lives had been saved, all because one human had refused to accept the impossible. The medical bay was unlike anything the human doctors had ever seen. Viridian medical technology was centuries ahead of Earth's, with devices that could manipulate individual cells and repair damage at the molecular level. But none of it had been designed for human biology. Kalara sat in the observation room, watching through the transparent wall as the medical team worked. It had been 6 hours since they pulled Marcus Chun from the reactor chamber. 6 hours of desperate improvisation as Viridian doctors collaborated with human medical experts over long-distance communication. Sarah, the red-haired woman from Chun's delegation, sat beside Kalara. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady as she explained the medical readouts to the princess. His cellular structure is breaking down, Sarah said quietly. The radiation damaged his DNA in thousands of places. Normally, that would be fatal within hours. But the Viridian regeneration technology is helping. They're using it to repair the breaks faster than they form. Will it be enough? Kalara asked. I don't know. Human regenerative capability is actually pretty good compared to most species. We heal faster than Viridians do naturally. But this kind of damage... Sarah's voice trailed off. Through the window, Kalara could see Chun lying motionless on the medical bed. His skin was covered in a pale blue gel that the Viridian doctors said would help repair tissue damage. Machines surrounded him, monitoring every function of his body, delivering treatments that human medicine wouldn't develop for another century. Chancellor Varth entered the observation room. He looked older than Kalara had ever seen him, the events of the day having stripped away his usual arrogant confidence. How is he? Varth asked. Stable, for now, Sarah answered. The doctors say the next 24 hours will be critical. Voreth walked to the window, staring at the unconscious human. I spoke with the Concordat Council, he said quietly. What happened today has spread across all member worlds. Everyone knows what the human did. There are protests on 36 planets demanding we grant humanity immediate membership. And what did the council say? Kalara asked. They're convening an emergency session tomorrow. But the outcome is certain. Humanity will be offered provisional membership, bypassing the usual evaluation period. Voreth turned to look at Kalara. You were right, Princess. I was wrong. We all were. About what? About what true strength means. I spent my life believing that technology and power defined a civilization's worth. But that human showed us something we'd forgotten. He showed us that courage and selflessness matter more than any weapon or machine. Kalara stood and walked to the window, placing her hand against the glass. I want to be here when he wakes up. That could be days, Princess. You have duties. I'm staying, she said firmly. He walked into death for us. For me. The least I can do is be here when he opens his eyes. Vorath nodded slowly. As you wish, Princess. I'll handle the diplomatic matters. Over the next 3 days, Kalara rarely left the observation room. She slept in a chair, ate meals brought by staff, and watched as the medical team fought to save Marcus Chun's life. The other members of his delegation took turns sitting with her, telling her stories about their ambassador. David, the young man who had guided Chen through the reactor, told her about Chun's career. He was a hostage negotiator before becoming a diplomat, David said. He spent 20 years talking people down from violence. He always said that understanding someone's perspective was the key to reaching them. That's why he learned Viridian culture so thoroughly before coming here. He wanted to understand you. Sarah told her about Chun's family. He has a daughter back on Earth. She's 16. Her name is Maya. He carries a picture of her everywhere. Sarah pulled up an image on her device, showing a young girl with Chun's warm eyes and gentle smile. He made us promise that if anything happened to him, we'd tell her he was thinking of her at the end. The stories painted a picture of a man who had dedicated his life to helping others, to building bridges between different people. A man who saw the best in everyone, even when they showed him their worst. On the 4th day, Marcus Chun's eyes opened. Kalara was dozing in her chair when the medical alarms changed tone. She jerked awake to see Chun stirring on the bed. His eyes were unfocused at first, wandering across the ceiling. Then they found her through the window. She was in the medical bay in seconds, the doctors stepping aside to let her approach. Chun tried to smile, but his face was still too damaged. It came out as more of a grimace. "Princess," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Did it work? Is everyone safe?" Tears were streaming down Kalara's face, though she wasn't sure when they had started. Yes, everyone is safe. The reactor is stable. You saved thousands of lives." "Good," Chun breathed. "That's good." The head doctor stepped forward. "Ambassador Chun, you need to rest. Your body is still healing. The radiation damage was extensive." "How extensive?" Chun asked. The doctor hesitated. "You'll recover, but it will take time. Months, perhaps. And there may be permanent effects. We're doing everything we can, but human biology is new to us." Chun nodded slightly. "Well, I guess I'll be getting to know Viridian medicine very well then." Over the following weeks, Kalara visited Chun every day. At first, he could barely stay awake for more than a few minutes. But gradually, his strength returned. The Viridian regeneration technology, combined with human resilience, worked miracles. They talked during those visits. Kalara asked him about Earth, about human history, about what made his species so different from everything she had known. Chun answered patiently, painting pictures of a world that had known terrible suffering and chosen to rise above it. "We're not special," Chun told her one afternoon. He was sitting up now, able to move around the medical bay with assistance. "We're not braver or moral than other species. We remember what it's like to fail. Every human knows stories of our worst moments. The wars, the genocides, the environmental disasters. We teach those stories to our children not to make them feel guilty, but to make sure they understand the consequences of selfishness." "Is that why you went into the reactor?" Kalara asked. "Because you were taught about consequences?" Chun shook his head. "I went into the reactor because I couldn't live with the alternative. If I had stayed safe and let everyone die, I would have survived, but I wouldn't have been able to look at myself in the mirror. It wasn't heroism, Princess. It was just refusing to be a coward." "That's the same thing," Kalara said softly. "Maybe." Chun smiled, and this time his face was healed enough for it to look genuine. "Or maybe heroism is just what we call it when someone does what they know is right, even when it's terrifying." 6 weeks after the incident, Marcus Chen was well enough to leave the medical bay. The doctors warned him that he would need ongoing treatment, that the radiation had caused damage that would take months to fully repair. But he was alive, and he was walking on his own. Kalara met him at the entrance to the medical bay. She was dressed in formal robes, and Chun noticed immediately. "What's the occasion?" he asked. "The Concordat Council has requested your presence," Kalara said. "They want to formally offer humanity membership and present you with an honor." Chun looked down at himself. He was wearing simple human clothing, nothing formal. "I'm not exactly dressed for a ceremony." "You're dressed fine," Kalara assured him. "Come, there are people waiting to meet you." She led him through the corridors of the flagship. Along the way, crew members stopped and bowed. Not the formal, distant bow she usually received as a princess, but deeper bows of genuine respect. Some touched their hearts as Chun passed. A viridian gesture of profound gratitude. Chun seemed uncomfortable with the attention, but he nodded to each person they encountered. When they reached the Grand Council chambers, Kalara paused at the door. "Marcus, before we go in, I want to thank you. You changed everything. Not just for humanity, but for all of us. You reminded us of something we had forgotten." "What's that?" "That the measure of a civilization isn't in its weapons or its technology. It's in how its people treat others when it would be easier to look away." Chun smiled at her. "Thank you, Princess. That means a lot." Kalara took his hand, and together, they walked through the doors to meet the Concordat Council and shape the future of human-alien relations. The Grand Council chambers looked different from the last time Marcus Chun had been there. Before, it had felt cold and unwelcoming, a place where powerful beings judged lesser ones. Now, it was filled with representatives from every species in the Galactic Concordat, and the atmosphere was completely changed. As Kalara led Chun into the chamber, the assembled delegates rose to their feet. All of them. From the towering Goroth to the floating Shardborn, from the multi-armed Thalaxians to the serpentine Nasari. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species, all standing in respect for one human. Chun stopped, overwhelmed. He had expected a small ceremony, a formal exchange of documents. This was something else entirely. Chancellor Varath stood at the center of the chamber, and when he spoke, his voice carried none of its previous condescension. "Ambassador Marcus Chen of Earth, on behalf of the Galactic Concordat, I welcome you." Chun walked forward, very aware of how small he must look surrounded by so many alien species. But Kalara walked beside him, her presence steadying him. Varath continued. 6 weeks ago, this council was prepared to deny humanity's petition for membership. We believed your species was too young, too inexperienced, too primitive to contribute to galactic civilization. We were wrong. The Chancellor gestured to a large display screen, which lit up with footage from the reactor incident. Chun watched himself on the screen, moving through the contaminated corridors, his hands shaking as he worked the controls. "What you did that day, Ambassador, was beyond anything we expected. You faced certain death to save people who had treated you with disrespect. You showed courage that we, in all our centuries of advancement, had forgotten was possible. You reminded us that true civilization is not measured in technology or military might, but in the willingness to sacrifice for others." The screen changed to show responses from across the galaxy. News reports from 100 different worlds. Protests demanding human membership. Messages of support flooding in from ordinary citizens of the Concordat species. "Your actions have sparked something across the galaxy," Varath said. "People are talking about heroism again, about selflessness, about what it means to be truly civilized. You've changed the conversation, Ambassador Chun. You've changed us." A Thalaxian stepped forward, one of their senior counselors. "The Thalaxian Collective wishes to formally apologize to humanity for our dismissive attitude. We would be honored to establish trade agreements and cultural exchanges with your species. One by one, representatives from different species came forward. Each offered apologies for their previous attitudes. Each offered friendship and cooperation. The Shardborn offered to share their quantum computing technology. The Goroth offered to help establish human colonies on harsh worlds. The Nasari offered to train human diplomats in their negotiation techniques. Chun stood there, accepting each offer with grace and humility, but Kalara could see the emotion in his eyes. This was what humanity had hoped for when they petitioned for membership. Not just acceptance, but genuine partnership. Finally, Varth raised his hand for silence. Ambassador Chun, it is the unanimous decision of the Galactic Concordat to grant humanity full membership, effective immediately. No provisional period. No restrictions. You have more than earned your place among us. The chamber erupted in applause. Chun bowed deeply, trying to maintain his composure, but Kalara saw his hands shaking. "Thank you," Chun said when the applause died down. "On behalf of all humanity, thank you. We promise to honor this trust. We promise to be worthy partners in building a better galaxy." Vorath held up an object, a crystalline structure that seemed to contain a captured star. "There is one more matter. The Concordat wishes to award you the Star of Valor, our highest honor. It has been awarded only 12 times in our recorded history, spanning over 20,000 years. You are the 13th recipient and the first non-Concordat member to receive it." Chun stepped forward, and Vorath placed the Star of Valor in his hands. It was warm to the touch, pulsing with soft light. "Marcus Chen," Vorath said formally, "you are a hero not just to humanity, but to all civilized species. We are honored to call you friend." The ceremony continued for another hour, with speeches and formal recognition from various councils and representatives. But finally, it was over, and Kalar was able to guide Chun away from the crowds to a quieter observation deck. They stood together, looking out at the stars. Earth was visible in the distance, a small blue-green world among countless others. "How do you feel?" Kalara asked. Chun laughed quietly. "Overwhelmed, grateful, terrified that I won't be able to live up to what they expect." "You already have," Kalara said, "just by being yourself." They were silent for a moment. Then Chun spoke again. "I've been thinking about what you said in the medical bay, about how I changed things. But I don't think that's quite right." "What do you mean?" "I didn't change anything," Chun explained. "I just reminded people of something they already knew but had forgotten. Every species in the Concordat has stories of heroes who sacrificed for others. They've just been so comfortable, so powerful for so long, that those stories became ancient history instead of living examples." Kalara considered this. "Perhaps you're right. But sometimes people need to be reminded. They need to see that the old values still matter, that courage and selflessness are still relevant, even in an advanced civilization." "Maybe that's what humanity can contribute," Chine said, thoughtfully. "We're still close enough to our struggles that we remember why those values matter. We can be the reminder." "I think you'll be much more than that," Kalara said. She turned to face him directly. "I had a request to make, Ambassador Chun. Please, just call me Marcus." "Marcus, then?" "I've requested assignment as the Viridian Ambassador to Earth. I want to learn more about your people. I want to understand the culture that produced someone like you. Will you help me?" Chun smiled. "I'd be honored. Though I should warn you, humanity isn't all heroes. We have our share of cowards and selfish people too." "I know," Kalara said. "But you also have systems in place to encourage heroism and discourage selfishness. You've built a society that celebrates sacrifice and cooperation. That's what I want to study. That's what I think the rest of the galaxy needs to learn." "Then come to Earth," Chun said warmly. "Meet my daughter." see our cities, talk to ordinary people. I think you'll find we're not that special. We just try to do the right thing, even when it's hard. That's exactly what makes you special, Kalara replied. They stood together, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport as the ship adjusted its course. Marcus was heading home, not as a petitioner from a primitive species, but as a hero recognized across the galaxy. And Kalara was heading to Earth, not as a superior evaluating inferiors, but as a student eager to learn. You know, Chun said, breaking the comfortable silence when I was in that reactor chamber. When I thought I was going to die, I kept thinking about something my daughter said to me before I left Earth. What did she say? She asked me what I would do if the aliens rejected us, if they turned us away. And I told her that it didn't matter if they accepted us or not. What mattered was that we kept trying to be better, to do the right thing, regardless of recognition or reward. That's beautiful, Kalara said softly. She told me I was being too philosophical and that I should just bring her back a cool alien souvenir. Chun laughed. I think she liked the Star of Valor, even if it's technically not mine to give away. Kalara laughed too, imagining this serious diplomat dealing with a teenage daughter. I look forward to meeting her. She sounds wise. She's smarter than I am, that's for sure. Behind them, David and Sarah approached, having finally escaped the crowds in the council chamber. They looked exhausted but happy. Marcus, Sarah said, we need to contact Earth and let them know what happened. The whole planet has been waiting for news. Then let's call them, Chun said. Let's tell them that humanity has joined the galactic community, and that we did it not by being superior, but by being ourselves. As his team set up the communication link, Kalara stepped back, watching Marcus Chen prepare to speak to his homeworld. This human who had walked into death with calm determination. This man who had changed her entire understanding of what civilization meant. This ambassador who had shown the galaxy that sometimes the newest voice has the most important things to say. She had been assigned to evaluate humanity's readiness for the Concordat. Instead, humanity had evaluated her and found her wanting. They had shown her that power without compassion was hollow, that technology without ethics was dangerous, and that true advancement was measured not in weapons or ships, but in the willingness to help others at great cost to yourself. The communication link activated, and she heard Marcus Chen begin to speak to Earth, his voice filled with warmth and pride. This is Ambassador Chun. I'm calling to inform you that as of today, humanity is a full member of the Galactic Concordat. We've been accepted not despite our differences, but because of them. Because we remember what it means to struggle and to help each other through that struggle. Kalara smiled and looked out at the stars. The galaxy was changing. Humanity had only just joined, and already they were making it better. Not through conquest or technology, but through the simple, stubborn insistence that every life mattered.